I was 34 when I learned that sound could lie. It was the summer of 1987, on the lip of the Adriatic where Italy thins into limestone and freight rails, and I was a contractor who listened for a living. I was paid to find order, inside noise, to sift through the static of a century. Fishermen shouts, Soviet telemetry, Yugoslav folk songs sliding through the ionosphere like lost birds, and report anything that did not belong. Most things do not belong anywhere, I learned. They simply exist and wait for a name. Years later, I still wake at 3:17, the minute a tone once found me, and I lie there listening to the refrigerator hum lay down a runway through the dark. I tell myself it is only a machine. I tell myself many things. I kept an office above a locksmith near the Canal Grande in Trieste. The locksmith worked short hours and longer stories. He would lean in my doorway, metal filings bright on his knuckles, and talk about people and their small panics. Keys are only plans, he liked to say, and panic is the lock. I pretended to laugh. On my desk sat a battered NRD 515 receiver, twin turntables, a spectrum analyzer that blinked like a December tree, and a map whose pushpins clustered along the coast. I freelanced for a ministry that did not print its name on the envelope, and for Rinaldi, who had once, I think, printed all the names. Everyone said he'd retired after the complicated years. He simply migrated to the margins like an owl and called it retirement. The reel arrived on a Wednesday, brown paper scuffed, my surname hand-typed with the heavy slant of an Olivetti. Inside, a 7-inch reel labelled XENIA in blue pencil, and a note from Rinaldi that said only, "Listen at 3:17. I set it aside, because adults with bills do not chase riddles in the daylight. After midnight, when the canal surrendered its last voices and the yacht masts stopped ticking, I wound the tape and threaded it through the Tascom's throat. At 3:17, the room tightened as if a window had been closed. A narrowband tone lifted, thin as a wire, and beneath it a child's voice began to count with an accent I could not place. The numbers fell like glass marbles into a wooden bowl. There was soft typewriter clatter under the counting, and in the background an organ held one tired note, as if a key had been taped down. I listened 4 times that night, 3 times the next, and by the weekend had triangulated nothing except my own superstition. The signal was not on the tape. The tape only taught my receiver how to listen. When I let the reel play and tuned slowly across the shortwave bands, something leaned back. The spectrum analyzer showed a narrow comb at 7.777 megahertz, faint but there, whether the band was alive or dead. The counting voice never repeated a sequence. It did not modulate with sunspot cycles. It did not care about weather. I found a rhythm in the gaps, and then lost it, which is how rhythm introduces itself at first. I took the tape to the radio club near the docks, a social room perfumed by solder and old wool. They were men who had listened too long and too kindly to lonely skips of voice bouncing across continents. A retired pilot, a physics teacher, a customs clerk with the shoulders of a swimmer. I said I had a tone that did not behave and asked for their misgivings. The teacher lifted his glasses and noted that 7.777 was numerology, not physics. The pilot said any child could count, and what worried him was who had taught the child to whisper past all the ordinary ghosts of the air. The customs clerk said that the organ note meant someone had money or a church. They laughed. I did not. 2 nights later, I saw her across the canal, just past the bridge with the bronze of Joyce striding into weather. She wore a plain dress and a coat too warm for the hour, and she looked like someone performing the act of waiting with precision. When she came inside, she did not remove the coat. She looked around my room without seeming to move her eyes, a trick I learned later, and said that I should not leave my blinds open when I returned from cigarettes I did not smoke. She said she could see the faces of machines reflected in the glass, and anyone could memorize them. She said Rinaldi had sent her to help. She did not give a name for herself, and so I waited until she offered one I could believe. She allowed Marta. She said it in a way that made it provisional, like the weather. I pretended to write it down. I told her about the comb at 7.777 and the counting and the organ that never tired. I told her about the ministry envelope and the way Rinaldi liked to ask for things with missing nouns. She listened and did not look at the machines. When she spoke, it was to say that my map had too many pins where nothing important had occurred, which made it useful. She said I should keep the pins where they were and add string, because string, unlike men, shows where it has been. She asked if the T